Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are doing something a little different.
Yeah.
Usually when we tackle a topic like quantum computing, the conversation, it drifts immediately into sci-fi territory, teleportation, parallel universes, all of that.
Right. It's always framed as this distant, magical technology that's 50 years away and very abstract.
Exactly. But today, we are stripping all of that away. We are dragging quantum computing out of the physics lab and right into the boardroom, which is honestly where it belongs right now.
No qubits, no superposition today. This isn't a physics lecture.
No, today is about risk.
Specifically, we're digging into a really fascinating piece by Johan Steyn. The article's called POPIA Meets Post-Quantum Reality, What Reasonable Safeguards Means in 2026.
And just to pull back the curtain a bit, this deep dive is, well, it's custom tailored for Johan himself. So Johan, welcome to the analysis of your own work.
We've been through it with a fine-tooth comb, and our mission here is really to unpack why your perspective on quantum-safe encryption is, frankly, a massive wake-up call.
A huge one. And you wrote this with South African business leaders in mind, but honestly, this is a siren for anyone, anywhere, handling sensitive data.
What really jumps out from the start is the urgency. Steyn frames this not as a someday problem, but as a today problem. He uses this phrase, the quiet security shift.
Quiet security shift.
I love
that.
Yeah, it's great because on the surface, everything looks fine. But underneath, the fuse is already lit.
It really implies the ground is moving under our feet and we don't even feel it.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's map out where we're going. First, we have to unpack this core threat, this idea of harvest now, decrypt later.
Which is the engine driving this whole thing.
For sure. Then we have to look at the human cost. Steyn makes this really compelling pivot to the vulnerability of children's data, which is genuinely unsettling.
Oh, it completely changes the stakes. It stops being about money and starts being about lives.
And finally, we'll get to the so what. What do leaders actually do? We'll look at crypto agility and the big governance questions.
Sounds like a plan. Let's start with harvest now, decrypt later, because I think for most people, even a lot of CTOs, there's a logical gap.
Right.
The powerful quantum computers don't exist yet, so the thinking is, my data is encrypted, I'm safe, I'll worry about it when they actually build the thing.
It feels reasonable. I mean, if the burglar doesn't have the crowbar yet, why change the lock?
But that, according to Steyn, is a dangerous fallacy. Adversaries, we're talking state actors, big criminal syndicates, they're playing a much longer game.
They're intercepting and copying encrypted data right now, today.
Yes. Intercepting traffic, downloading entire databases. To them, it's just scrambled digital noise. They can't read it.
Not yet.
Not yet. But storage is cheap. So they are hoarding it. They are filling data centers with this unreadable data and just waiting for the day that quantum hardware comes online.
They're like digital pack rats.
Exactly. Digital pack rats with a very malicious plan, because the moment that hardware is ready, they unlock the whole vault. Everything they harvested years ago suddenly becomes an open book.
That is chilling. It means if you're sending data today that needs to be secret in 10 years, it's already vulnerable.
Precisely. You just haven't felt the pain yet. Steyn calls encryption a time-sensitive asset.
A time-sensitive asset.
Yeah. We think of it as a lock, on or off. But he's saying it has an expiration date. And for long-term secrets, that shelf life is basically zero now.
So it's not a 2036 problem. It's a retroactive problem.
It completely collapses the timeline. And he notes that cryptographers are racing to deploy quantum-resistant methods because they know the math is running out. You don't wait for the headline that says quantum computer breaks internet.
If you wait for the headline, you've already lost.
You've lost everything you're holding today.
It's like radiation. You can't see it, you can't feel it, but the exposure is happening now and the sickness comes later.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And it gets worse when you think about the mosaic effect. One piece of data might be harmless, but when they decrypt 10 years worth of everything, they can build a complete picture of a person, a company, a government.
Which is a perfect segue to the part of the article that honestly hit me the hardest. When he moves away from the corporate world and talks about children's data.
This is where the threat moves from a financial risk to a potential societal tragedy.
Yeah.
Steyn points out that children's data is unique because it's so long-lived. I mean, think about it. If someone steals my credit card number, it's a hassle. I cancel the card, the data's useless in a month.
Right. It's annoying, but it's fixable. A child's record that doesn't expire.
Never. Steyn lists the types of data being collected: medical histories, learning support assessments, behavioral profiles, biometrics.
This is the data that defines who you are.
And if that's harvested today, and decrypted in, say, 2035.
Then that child is now an adult, maybe applying for a job or running for office, and their entire childhood medical history is out there.
It becomes the ultimate leverage, the ultimate blackmail material. Imagine having the psych assessments of a CEO from when they were 12.
It's terrifying.
As Steyn says, the harm is personal and lifelong. You can't cancel a leaked psychological report.
And he's specifically calling out sectors like education and healthcare. It's not just the banks. It's primary schools. It's departments of health.
Because they hold the data with the longest shelf life. If you're a bad actor, you harvest that data because in 15 years, it gives you power over the next generation of leaders.
Wow, that is a dark thought, but it makes complete strategic sense.
It does.
Now let's look at the context here. Johan's writing from a South African perspective, but the lessons feel global. He mentions a report about a South Africa-China quantum communication milestone. Why is that important?
It's crucial. He's reminding us this isn't just about raw computing power in a lab. It's about infrastructure. It's about geopolitics. Who owns the cables? Who sets the standards?
And that leads to what he calls the inheritance problem. I thought that was such a smart way to frame it.
It is. In many countries, businesses inherit their technology. A bank in Johannesburg runs on AWS or Azure. A retailer uses a global payment gateway.
So they're totally dependent on their vendors for security.
Completely. And Steyn's point is, if those global vendors decide to move to quantum-safe standards, which they will on their own timelines, local companies get dragged along.
So you wake up one day and your cloud provider says, we've updated, you need to as well, or you're cut off.
Exactly. You either get dragged along in a controlled way or in a crisis because you weren't paying attention. And he cites research showing most enterprises are just not prepared.
They assume the vendor will handle it all.
And the vendor assumes the client is updating their own systems. That gap is where breaches happen.
And then you layer the legal aspect on top. The article mentions POPIA, South Africa's Data Protection Act, which is a lot like GDPR.
Right, and the key phrase there is reasonable safeguards. The law says you have to protect data with reasonable safeguards.
But the definition of reasonable isn't static.
No, it moves with the technology. In 2020, standard encryption was reasonable. But in 2026, if you're storing long-term sensitive data without quantum-safe methods, can you really argue in court that you took reasonable steps?
Probably not. If the threat is known and a solution exists, ignoring it starts to look like negligence.
It could easily be seen as a violation of the law. You can't plead ignorance when the alarm has been ringing for years.
Okay, the alarm is definitely ringing, so let's pivot to solutions. Johan doesn't just leave us in a panic. He offers a roadmap. He talks about governance over gadgets.
I love that phrase. He means you can't just buy a box that says quantum safe and plug it in. It's a systemic shift. And he gives leaders 4 key questions to ask.
Let's run through them. They feel applicable to pretty much any organization. Question 1.
Where do we use encryption?
It sounds almost too simple.
But you'd be surprised. Most organizations don't have a full inventory. It's in emails, databases, old servers, cloud connections, APIs. It's everywhere. You can't upgrade what you can't find.
Right, it's a full audit. What's question 2?
Which systems protect long-lived sensitive data? This goes back to prioritizing. Data that needs to be secret for 10 minutes is low priority. Data that needs to be secret for 20 years.
That's priority number 1. Your mortgages, your health records, your trade secrets.
Exactly. You have to separate the short term from the long term.
Makes sense. Question 3.
Which vendors control the cryptography choices? This is the inheritance problem again. Have you asked your cloud provider about their post-quantum roadmap?
I imagine a lot of them might not have a great answer right now.
They might not, but you have to ask. If they don't have a plan, you have a massive supply chain risk.
Okay, and the final question.
What is our timeline to become crypto-agile?
Let's pause on that term, crypto-agile.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like?
Think of it like the locks on your house. For the last 30 years, we've built encryption like a lock that's welded into the door frame. If it breaks, you have to replace the whole door.
So rewrite code, recompile everything, shut down servers. A nightmare.
A total nightmare. Crypto-agility is like having a modular lock. It's a slot. If a vulnerability is found, you just slide the old lock out and slide a new quantum-resistant one in.
You just swap the math.
You just swap the math. The system doesn't need a total rebuild. And Steyn says organizations need to build this agility now because we don't know for sure which new algorithm will be the final standard.
And he points out this is already happening in the consumer world, right? with VPN providers.
Yes, some VPNs are already adding it as a feature, which proves his point. This is moving from academic papers to real product roadmaps. It's not theory anymore.
Okay, there's one last piece I found really refreshing. Usually the answer to a tech security problem is more tech. But Steyn ends on something different. Data minimization.
The zero trust approach to data collection itself, the quote that stands out is, "The safest data is the data you never collect."
It's so simple, but it goes against the grain of the whole big data movement.
It does. The old mindset was collect everything, storage is cheap. But in a post-quantum world, hoarding data is hoarding liability.
It's like hoarding toxic waste.
Pretty much. If you collect unnecessary data on children today, you are just creating a larger attack surface for tomorrow's quantum computers, a bigger target.
So he's arguing we should ask, do we even need to hold this data at all before we ask how to protect it?
It's the ultimate defense. You can't decrypt what doesn't exist.
It pairs perfectly with encryption. Strong defense for what you must keep and a smaller target overall.
That's the holistic strategy he's pushing, and it requires leadership, not just an IT department.
So looking at the big picture, the main takeaway from Johan's work is what?
That quantum safe is a board-level issue now. It's about responsible leadership. It's about making sure technology expands opportunity without destroying trust.
It's about being a good ancestor to your future data.
I love that, yes. The choices you make today define the safety of your customers in 2036.
So, Johan, your message is crystal clear. Quantum computing isn't a sci-fi dream. It's a trajectory to plan for, not a headline to wait for.
Absolutely. The quiet security shift is happening whether we like it or not. The question is whether we shift with it.
Now, before we sign off, here's a thought to leave everyone with. Building on what Johan wrote, we've talked about harvest now, decrypt later. If your organization is storing encrypted data today that you expect to be private in 2030, are you technically already in a state of data breach and you just don't know it yet?
Wow. That's a very uncomfortable question. It suggests the breach has already happened. We're just waiting for the notification.
It certainly does. Johan, thank you for this article. It's a vital piece of work.
A really fascinating and important read. Thank you, Johan.
And to everyone else, thanks for diving deep with us. Stay curious, stay agile, and maybe go check what data you're holding on to that you don't really need. We'll see you in the next one.